Hi again. Recently we talked about citizen's arrest and the parameters in which you could do it. Today I'd like to speak a little bit about the use of force while conducting a citizen's arrest. Before we get started, I'd appreciate that you would click this top secret icon in the lower right hand corner of your screen to subscribe and make sure you do not miss out on a thing. So citizen's arrest, as we discussed before, is a matter of state law in which you, as a citizen, conduct an arrest, and typically it's done as an arrest of a felony that is committed in your presence. And you should always check the laws of your state in order to determine what is legal and what is illegal with regard to citizen's arrests and what triggers one or gives you the power to conduct one. So likewise, with regard to using force while affecting a citizen's arrest, it is important that you check your state or your country's laws regarding the use of force. But as a general rule, the one thing that you can count on is if your health or your well-being is in danger from the point of view of like an assault, you are permitted to use force to stop that assault. You are permitted to use force to stop that rape or to stop that robbery. Because the nature of it is these are violent crimes in which force is being used against you. So obviously force is allowed in these instances. And I would suggest to you that that should be the only time that you would probably execute that, unless you're very familiar with the laws in your state or area. Having said that, obviously to protect someone else, you may also use force to stop that threat. And the state in which I live allows for a citizen to use deadly force to effect a citizen's arrest. And that, of course, is allowed to make a citizen's arrest in the case of a felony or to assist a law enforcement officer. Police have greater power to make arrests than the citizen does, typically. The citizen has greater power to use force while making the arrest that he's allowed to make. And this is because the higher standard for the police officer is because he's been trained to use force and he is recognized as someone in authority. He has a badge, he has a uniform, and therefore his restrictions are going to be greater with regard to use of force and even using deadly force to effect an arrest. The citizen, on the other hand, may only make an arrest in limited circumstances, but the difference is that he's allowed to make that arrest and effect that arrest using force and even using deadly force in many instances. Obviously, everyone has a right to protect themselves against threat to life and limb, and so using deadly force in that instance, whether it be with a gun or with your hands or with any other kind of edge or impact weapon, is going to be looked at as something that was allowed or necessary to stop that threat and, quite frankly, affect the arrest of the person making the assault. I would suggest that if you were witnessing a violent crime, especially if you knew what you were doing, indeed stop that violent crime from happening. If you do not know what you're doing, at the very least try to alert the police or someone who does know what he's doing to help you to stop that crime from being committed, or at the very least to apprehend the perpetrator of that crime. However, with regard to other crimes that perhaps you are allowed as a citizen to use force and to make a citizen's arrest, once again, the situation may be that it would be more advisable just to be a good witness, to remember as many details as possible, and to report to the police accurately what happened and how it happened and the description of or anything else you can remember of the person who committed that crime. Once again, I want to iterate, it's very important to know what you're doing if you are going to attempt a citizen's arrest. Using force, obviously, will help you make that arrest, but remember, you are likely to experience resistance, especially the higher the class of felony and the nature of the felony if it is a violent felony. Remember that you can expect resistance, whether it be from the suspect who is armed or the suspect who isn't armed, because he doesn't want to get caught. So you better be ready and prepared to know what you're doing, not only, but to actually do it, to make that arrest. There's another factor to consider though, and that is that you could attempt to make an arrest or have made an arrest of a criminal, but the police do not realize who the criminal is, and all they see is you subduing someone else or assaulting someone else. They can mistake you for the actual perpetrator of the crime as opposed to a citizen doing a lawful citizen's arrest. Be mindful of that too. So when the police show up at the scene of the crime or the scene where you have the suspect subdued, obey all their commands. Try to explain to them succinctly and briefly but clearly that you are indeed the one who has subdued the criminal and not the criminal himself. I also want to remind everyone that I have a 30-day challenge out there. If I can get 100 new subscribers in the next 30 days, I will release 15 lesson DVD. Thanks for watching. Remember to do good always and to seek truth and justice and to do that which is right.